there. That was a statue of Harry Jerome. He was born in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan in 1940, and he holds a couple world records for the 100-meter sprint and 100-yard sprint. He did suffer a couple thigh injuries in his career. He wasn't sure if he'd ever be able to run or walk again. He came back to win the bronze medal in the 64 Olympics, and then the gold medal in the 67 Pan American Games. And then he went on to teach high school here in North Vancouver after he finished his running career. So if you look across the water in front of us there, that's a portion of North Vancouver over there. So over that bridge, and you're gonna be able to see the bridge in a minute here. Oh, a squirrel just ran past us. I know you people in Australia love squirrels. You don't have any though, that's why. I'd rather take squirrels than possums, though, that is for sure. Now on the right hand side you can see the red and white lighthouse over there. That is the Brockton Point Lighthouse. It was put there in 1914 but decommissioned in 2005, so it's no longer in use anymore. But it's the most popular spot in the park for marriage proposals now though. You see? And then on the right of us right now, that big bright neon yellow pile of stuff. Does anybody know what that is? Sulfur. Sulfur, that's right, yeah. Sulfur. So we can stockpile about 170,000 tons of sulfur over there, and we do export it across the world to about 40 countries from here, including Morocco, Brazil, Japan, Malaysia, and China, just to name a few of those.
Is it coming out of the neighbouring mountains?
It's a what?
Is it mined out of the
it's up in the northern region of BC and some areas of Alberta. It's a byproduct of the sour gas wells. It gets shipped over here. We use it in the pharmaceutical industry for skincare treatments, the paper industry, the making of fertilizer mixed with potash, and a process that's called vulcanization. That's the hardening of rubber and how things like hockey pucks and tires are made. And then on the left here, this big grassy area, this is the Brockton Oval. So this is actually a sports area that we have in the park now. There's a couple cricket pitches, so one right there and one next to us. And there's a rugby field and a track field beyond the hedge. And then that clubhouse joins all three. Has anybody here played cricket before? I'm sure some of you have. So cricket can last up to 5 days for a test match. At the end of the 5 days, you may not even know who won. It'll end up being a draw. But written to the rule books of cricket, though, you can take breaks every couple hours for tea and sandwiches. It's a very civilized sport.
I went to the States and I watched a baseball match and I said, this is boring, and they said, you're saying it's boring
and you play cricket. This is true. It's just a really extended version of baseball, but like way more confusing. And the body of water on the right, this is the Burrard Inlet. So it was founded by Captain George Vancouver. He had a friend that served with him in the West Indies, and there's a seal right there, guys. Can you see him? He's in the water poking his head out right there. There's lots around right now. There's babies everywhere. So he founded this, named it after a man named Sir Harry Burrard that served with him in the West Indies in 1785. In the middle here, it's actually about 390 feet deep. So it's really deep. This is why we see things like seals. We get California sea lions, and we also get the occasional pod of orcas that will travel through here too. Not all the time, maybe once or twice a year, a little bit more than that sometimes. But they chase the salmon that come through the pass here. And then up in the distance you can see that mountain range, which is part of the BC Coastal Mountain Range. The one with the wind turbine at the top is Grouse Mountain. About 25 minutes from downtown, so not far. And there's a shuttle that'll take you for free to Grouse Mountain from Canada Place. And they have a gondola right there called the Sky Ride. In the spring and summer they do a lumberjack show up there, which is really fun. And they have a wildlife sanctuary, restaurants and shops. So there's lots of stuff to do up there. And then the home here on the left-hand side, this is the only private home in the park. So somebody actually gets to live in this house. He's very lucky, the only person that resides in the park, that's allowed to reside in the park, that is. He is the caretaker of the 9 o'clock gun. So the 9 o'clock gun was a 12-pound muzzle-loader cannon that he would set off every night at 9 o'clock to help ships set their chronometers. Now, obviously, they figured out that setting off a cannon was extremely dangerous. So they stopped doing that. It's all done electronically now. So this man walks over the gun, pushes the button to reset it, and it goes off, and he goes home every night. But he gets to live here in the park rent-free for the last 20 years to do this job. So basically, I'm just waiting for him to eventually retire so that I can take over and move in. Sounds like a great job to me. Another squirrel on the left. Now, if you guys are in downtown at 9, you'll hear it go off. It's pretty loud. You have little black squirrels.
Purple back.
And now the pathway here on the right, so this is the seawall. The seawall is the pathway that you'll take to walk around the park. It goes for 9 kilometers around the park. If you want to walk that, it'll take you about 2.5 hours. Really pretty walk though, really pretty walk. It does extend into Vancouver. Total seawall is 28 kilometers. It's the largest uninterrupted sea path. So they started construction on it in 1917, but it wasn't finished on 1979, so it did take a really long time. But the reason it took this long is because they had to wait for the tides to go out and then the government money to come in. And it was supervised by a man named James Cunningham for the first 35 years. Really sick, but he would always walk the seawall every day, check out his work, but he was always dressed in his top coat and his pajamas. So he became kind of a local legend, walking around in his pajamas every day. They incorporated his ashes into the seawall actually after he passed away. And it's split into 2 lanes, faster traffic and slower traffic. And as we're going to pull over here in a minute, you can take a look at the statue on the right-hand side. So that's sitting on top of the rock, and that's called Girl in a Wetsuit. A lawyer here in Vancouver named Douglas Brown vacationed over in Copenhagen, and that's where he saw the statue of the Little Mermaid and loved it. He wanted a copy for himself, but they said no. So he came home and he commissioned his own artist locally here in Vancouver, who his name was Alec Emerty. So in 1970 she was sculpted. June 9th of 1972 she was placed on the rock. She's cast in bronze, weighs about 330 pounds on top of that rock. And if you look closely, she's not a mermaid. She's a female with flippers, a wetsuit, and goggles on. She wasn't allowed to do the mermaid. So the rock is artificially raised. There's a platform underneath here. This keeps her above sea level. The tide is almost all the way out right now. When it comes all the way in, it'll come right up to the tip of her flipper and to the wall. The variance is about 9 to 15 feet, depending on the day, usually. And it's a 12-hour tide. And then the figurehead of the dragon here on the right, that is the replica of the SS Empress Japan figurehead. That boat was part of the White Empress fleet, and it sailed across the Pacific 315 times. Holds a world record, taking only 10 days to travel across. And it carried things like mail, silk, and tea. Uh-oh. We're about to Spring Lake.
Alright.
Yep. You could get a steerage pass for the boat too back then for about $45. And it sits in the Maritime Museum in Kitsilano if you guys wanted to go check it out. It's much bigger but made of wood, which is why it can't sit out here. Alright, boys. Just walk. And the bridge you see on the right hand side looks very similar to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. This is our Lions Gate Bridge. And it gets its name from the Lions Peak Mountains, which you can't see even on a clear day from this angle here, but they're the tallest mountain peaks. They sit about 5,400 and 5,600 feet above sea level. We like to call the bridge built by beer, though. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Guinness beer. Yeah. So the Guinness family had property on the other side of the bridge, and they wanted a faster way to get from one side of the area to the other. There was a ferry on the bottom back then, but it was very inconsistent. So the Guinness family went to the government and asked them if they would build a bridge. So the government said, no, we don't want to put a bridge right in the middle of the park. It took about 30 years of negotiating, and they finally approved it. In 1933, the government told the Guinness family that they could build the bridge, but they would have to pay for it. So that's what they did. In 1937, they started the construction process on it, and it was finished in November of 1938. So the construction process for the bridge took 1 year, and the cost of it back then was $5.8 million. So if you think about it now, most of the homes on that side are worth more than that. But back then, probably would have been quite a bit of money. And then in 1955, the government did purchase it from the Guinness family. So the government owns the bridge, and they paid exactly what they paid to build it back in 1937, although it did function as a toll bridge until about 1963. And I still think they got a really good deal on that. But by bridge standards, it's pretty small. It carries about 25 million vehicles a year over it, which is a lot for that bridge. So they did an expansion on it in 2002, and that actually cost the government $70 million. Just walk. It's going to connect you to the north side of Vancouver. Also, some of the more expensive real estate that we have here in Vancouver, known as the British properties. This is where Oprah Winfrey actually has a home, and some of the Canucks players have homes too. Is anybody going to the aquarium?
The aquarium is fabulous.
It's so good.
It is fabulous.
Did you go?
Several years ago.
Oh, good.
Fabulous.
So on the left-hand side, this is the back of it. I love the aquarium. It's a great aquarium. It's not huge, but there's so much to see inside there. There's about 50,000 marine animals in there. So it'll take you about 2 hours or more to go through it, everything. And they have great exhibits on the West Coast sea life. If you want to know what's in the water, it tells you everything. Also, they have some really good demonstrations for some of the animals in there. And they have a 4D movie theater in there, too. It's playing a shark movie, which is actually very good. And then this wooden arch on the left is Lumberman's Arch. It was originally erected in 1912 over at Pender and Hamilton in honor of the Duke and Duchess of Connaught that are visiting. And if we look on the bottom on the right-hand side, you can see the Children's Variety Water Park down here. So this used to be a saltwater wading pool. They changed the piping to make it more sanitary, but they built this yellow contraption on the bottom. That is the children's dryer. So if you come here on a hot summer day and you forget your towel, you can put your kids in the dryer and they come out dry. This big tree here on the left is one of the trees that's native to us here in BC. It's a broadleaf maple tree, but it's also the largest of the maple tree family. These ones have those really big maple leaves on them that you see right there. The one thing you would associate with the Canada maple leaf, although there's no maple syrup in those trees. So the maple syrup trees are sugar maples and they're native to Quebec. They don't grow very well here. We don't get the cold weather that the rest of Canada gets. Our water is very cold though. So it's about 6 degrees Celsius all the time. It's not warm. I mean, people swim in it in the summertime, but they say it gets a little bit warmer. But I don't think a 1 degree or so is even that much warmer. Yeah, I mean the sand heats up a little bit, but it's cold. It's just cold. And then if you look through the trees here, in behind us, in the distance, you're going to see another bridge back there. So that bridge back there is called Second Narrows Bridge. And in 1958, it was due to be complete. But a month before it was completed, the whole bridge twisted and collapsed due to an engineering fault of the bridge. So it ended up killing 19 men that day. It was one of the larger industrial accidents we've had. In 1994, they renamed it Iron Workers Memorial Bridge. And also, when you graduate from any engineering school in Canada now, they gift you a ring made of the steel of the bridge to remind you of what not to do in your engineering. All right, good boy. Good boy. Now, as you walk around the park or in any of the forested areas through the trails or anything, you're going to see lots of remnants of the logging industry. And by that I mean things like what's on the left-hand side. So trees that have been cut down from years ago. The loggers were logging back in the mid-1800s. So the park became Stanley Park in 1889, and they stopped the logging once it became a park. And you'll see things like this. There's a tree that's been cut down. It's still laying on the forest floor there. And so as we get up a little bit further, you can take a look at the tree that's on the ground, and you'll see a square kind of cutout in it right there. So that's called a notch mark. So that notch mark the loggers would make in order to put a plank in it called a springboard. So they would stand on these springboards and they'd get taller up into the trunk of the tree where it was more narrow, so they could get those two-man saws through the base of the tree trunk back then that they were using. If you ever see any of the lumberjack shows over on Grouse Mountain, or they have them in Whistler as well, they do really good demonstrations for all that kind of stuff. It's a really neat thing to watch. So I'll give you guys some more information on the horses now. So all the horses we have are draft horses, which is a working breed of horse. The breeds we currently have in our farm at the moment are the Percherons like these guys, and then we have Belgians too. We don't have any Clydesdales at the moment. We had one Clydesdale, he retired last year. So these guys are bred to pull things like farm equipment, logs, carriages, and they can pull up to 5 times their own body weight. Grit's 2,500 pounds, which is quite a bit of weight. So these carriages weigh 1,500 pounds with nobody in them. It's not as heavy as you might think. I can actually move this myself. It's not hard to roll around the barn in the parking lot. Sometimes I have to, in order to get these guys hitched up properly, I have to roll it around. I'm not going to run it around the whole park, obviously, but I can move it in small distances. But we have brakes on all the carriages, and I'm pushing the brake right now. This is so the horses don't have to hold the weight of the carriage from the back. They're not really bred to do that. How these guys actually move anything or pull anything is they push their own body weight into the collars that they're wearing up front in order to pull this. So they're technically pushing, not pulling. And then when we feed these guys, as you can imagine, they are a very big horse and they probably eat a lot, and they do. So they eat 15, they get 2 main meals a day, breakfast and dinner, and that consists of a 15-pound